All righty, welcome back to another episode of Two Plane Sports. Today is Sunday, October 30th. Oklahoma coming off of another win. Can you believe that? OU won another game. There was a thought where OU might have gone 3-9. Now they have 5 wins. So we're going to recap the game against Iowa State. It was a pretty close game throughout, but then OU was able to pull away towards the end. And then we're going to be talking about just what our thoughts on the team, maybe a little bit of kind of college football talk around the country. Obviously, recap our bets. OSU not looking great. I look like an idiot on one of my bets, and just go through that and talk about what we thought. So before we get into it, I just want to say we appreciate it. We're over 5,100 subscribers. We're starting to grow in the subscriber count. So we appreciate you guys coming back, hitting the subscribe button, turn the notification bell on, like the video, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Everything's linked in the description below. And also on Apple or Spotify, leave us a review on there. That helps a lot as well. So we'll just get into it. OU played Iowa State, ended up winning 27-13, won by 14 points, definitely covered. OU was a 1-point favorite for a long time. It looked like the morning of they shifted to a 2.5-point favorite. People in Vegas and whatever were starting to realize that OU was clearly the better team. And obviously they showed that they are the better team, and they won on the road at Ames, which can be a tough place to play. The defense looked good. I mean, not that Iowa State has a potent offense by any means, but they forced turnovers. 3 interceptions. You can't complain about that. Jose, what do you think about this performance? What are some initial thoughts and takeaways?
Well, the defense definitely did better. I would not at all say that it was a great game by them. Turnovers definitely helped make it look good. But if you remove the turnovers, we still gave up a ton of yards. Decker had 308 in the air, which is, to me, the most concerning part. Because if we play a team, which we will, between now and the end of the season, that can run the ball and has a decent quarterback, that's probably going to come back and bite us. Because they, even with 308 yards, they only got 1 touchdown in the air. They got 1 touchdown all day. So the defense was good enough to keep them from scoring, but I think it's also just how bad their offense is right now. They can't do a damn thing to get the ball in the end zone. Their red zone defense is elite, though. Every time we got in the red zone, it felt like it wasn't a given that Oklahoma was even gonna get close enough to score. That stop that they made, I can't remember the backer's name, but he stopped Eric Gray like on the 1-yard line right as he was trying to just fall into the end zone. That was a fantastic play by him. He removed himself from his assignment as soon as he saw the ball start going towards Gray. That was great play. Forced Oklahoma to kick a field goal. That might have been the play right before the Schmidt a trick play to get him into the end zone. He had a hell of a game, clearly kicking a lot. And then that drawn up play, BB said that there's plenty of times throughout the year so far that they've trotted out there with the trick play ready to go, but they just alert out of it. So whoever's coaching special teams, I think is it Brandon Hall? I can't remember if we've...
No, it's Nunez.
Oh, Nunez.
Yeah.
Nunez is doing a fantastic job. That was probably Oklahoma's worst part of the team last year. And even with all the turnover, he's able to make it look like Oklahoma's maybe not the best, but it sure as hell is competing up there with the offense in like the best unit. Offense, people were shitting on Marvin Mims. I don't get it. I understand he didn't have a great game, but I can only recall him dropping 2 passes. The first pass of the game, which should have been a gimme, probably would have gone to the house if not been very, very close, 10 yards there. And then I can't remember what quarter it was, but the third down drop that would have converted a first down. Clearly, that's not what you want to see from your best receiver, but I mean, people will have that game. I really don't think it's an indication of the player he is or that he's losing some sort of confidence. Like that's a really good defense that we played against. Dylan Gabriel didn't really have the opportunity to air the ball out a ton. So I really feel like it's just a one-off that Marvin Mims just had a tough game against this defense. Eric Gray, though, when we talked about it in our last video, and then I talked about it in our preview before with Brody on Wednesday, I really thought Oklahoma was going to have a significantly harder time opening up holes, but that offensive line is just getting better and better and meaner and stronger. I don't know what they're doing to make it look so easy and opening up holes for Eric Gray. His shiftiness definitely helps get those yards too, but damn, some of those holes were big that he just went through.
Yeah, and it's interesting. They're rotating Met Tower and Congle in it's almost like every other series, and it seems like there's no drop off in between, which is good to see. I would agree with you that offensive line it's night and day different compared to the first couple of weeks. And I will say now, Deckers did have 308 yards. That last drive that they had, that they turned the ball over and OU ended the game on, Deckers did have like 70 something yards on that drive. And part of me thinks that OU, was playing a little more soft and things like that. So it could be a little deceiving, but he did attempt 57 passes and we only allowed 66 rushing yards total. And so that's really not too bad. I'm not saying it's the best because Iowa State is obviously not a dangerous team. The one part where it kind of bugged me was about the defense was it 2 4th and 12s that Iowa State converted on the drive where they scored.
That's the only thing the commentators didn't mess up all day was just how good Hunter Deckers was on 3rd and 4th down when they gave him that opportunity. It was tough to get them off the field sometimes.
It was ridiculous. I don't know. And I felt like Dimitri Stanley was always running free on those, 3rd and 4th downs. He ended up having 90 yards. And obviously Xavier Hutchinson was the focal point. He was, 10 catches for 72. It looked better, but you can tell that this team is thin in a lot of areas, but it was good to see Billy Bowman back. Deckers was not overly comfortable. Obviously, OU with a couple, 3 interceptions, and you can argue whether that first one was an interception or not. Whatever, but it counted at the end of the day. We don't care. But I think going to Ames is a tough place to play. Now, Iowa State's defense is really good. Dylan Gabriel, he only threw for 148 yards and a touchdown, but that's all that was needed because this defense was, OU's defense was holding their end of the bargain, and Eric Gray had over 100 yards again. It seems like that Marcus Major got his fair share of carries, but he was not able to do very much at all outside of maybe 1 or 2 kind of longer runs. But other than that, they were all short to a couple yards on every carry. Marvin Mims, that first pass that he did drop, it wouldn't have even counted anyway. There was a holding call on that play. So it's not the end of the world. But he was going up with 50-50 balls, and arguably a couple of them, Dylan Gabriel could have led him a little bit better and put in a little bit better of a spot, and he would have been able to make the catch way easier. But we've got a star coming along in Jalil Farouk, and I know Brandon, he's still not able to watch any games, and he's going to be happy to figure it out whenever he comes back. But Farouk is really starting to emerge as a true option. And, if Mims does end up leaving, Farouk would be the number 1 receiver. I'm not saying that Mims is going to transfer or leave or whatever, but I'm just saying it seems like Farouk is emerging as a potential number 1. What do you think?
Well, I think that's a good point. Farouk is been really, really good as of late. And if Marvin Mims, there's a very good chance that he leaves for the draft. I mean, he hasn't had a terrible season. Has it been his best season at Oklahoma? No, but he'd probably be a day 2 pick at this rate. Probably a late second, sometime in the 3rd pick. Probably he hasn't had a good enough season, I think, or career in college to be a first round draft pick or even an early second round draft pick. But it's possible if he strings along a few really good games here to end the season. Farouk is, that's definitely the one that Brandon hit on. I remember when we first started the channel and we were going through the entire recruiting class that year, and he said that was going to be the best receiver in that class, which I didn't think he was going to be wrong, that he was going to be good receiver, but the best receiver in the class, the number one option at some point in his career at Oklahoma. What a call there from Brandon. It's definitely going to be cool to see him emerge to see what he can do as a number one option if Marvin Mims does decide to declare for the draft after this year. With the running back situation, it sucks that Javonte wasn't able to play this weekend. I really think that he would have been able to do a little bit more just because of how violently he runs the ball. Some people might not like it, but I think that's what we need in a running back to be kind of to be just the complete opposite of Eric Gray. Eric is a very shifty running back, probably not really going to run people over very much. Can he do it every once in a while? Sure. But Javonte is just going to lower his shoulder and make them feel every ounce of the force that he brings in every run that he has. Hopefully that hamstring isn't something that's going to linger, because hamstrings are so weird. Sometimes they can take you out for just a couple days and you'll be right back ready to go. Sometimes they can be just long lasting nagging injuries all year. So hopefully he'll be fine. And Eric Gray had a little bit of a scare there. I know he tried to come back, but his leg, I don't know. Venables didn't say in the press conference what happened, but he clearly acknowledged that there was some sort of injury to I think it was his right leg. So hopefully he's fine for next weekend. I'm really glad that the young guys are starting to come in. We saw Gentry Williams. He made a really good play. Really close to a pass interference, but it wasn't. He didn't shove the guy. It really just seemed like he had good position and good enough where either, I think it was Xavier Hutchinson, tripped on his own feet, or maybe a little bit of a shove. But that's the kind of stuff that you, again, want to see in a good DB, get away with a little bit of cheating, because it's a one-on-one battle out there, and you got to do what you can to win it at the end of the day. Defense is improving. I just don't think it's great yet, but it's showing signs that once you get in the guys that you need with the size and athletic ability, it's going to be a very good defense, like we all expected Venables to have. As soon as he was hired as a head coach.
It's going to take a little bit of time. I mean, hardly any coach in college football is able to come in and win immediately. Yeah, I mean, Lincoln Riley's winning right now, but they're not a national championship team. I mean, there's no way. I mean, they gave up like 37 points to Arizona last night. So yeah, I mean, he has a bunch of transfers and it's working for him, but you're not going to go beat Tennessee. You're not going to go beat Ohio State or Alabama or Georgia. It's just not happening. So yeah, it's going to take time. Talking about that defense, Jordan Kelly. I mean, he had a nice sack. Not that, he hasn't been great all year. He just really hasn't been able to get a ton of pressure, and he finally was able to. But the one guy that looked really good and that was flying around was Deshaun White. White had a really good game. I mean, he had like 14 total tackles. He had a tackle and a half for loss. He was flying around, hitting people. Stutzman, the one touchdown that they scored, I think it was the touchdown that made it like a 6-point game or 7-point game. Stutzman got lost. I think he gave it up to Jalen Knoll. Stutzman was kind of standing out in the middle of nowhere and just let him score. But then Stutzman ended up getting an interception on the same play. And it just goes to show that the corrections and the coaching is happening, because it's not the same thing. While Stutzman made a mistake, he was able to correct it. I mean, the coaches identified it, corrected it, and they try to do it again, and he made him pay. Like we haven't seen that really since, with the previous staff and even with this staff for a while, that we never really saw like good adjustments and things like that mid game. And I think you're finally starting to see it. And it does look like Brent Venables is more involved. He's going over and talking with them. He's coaching them like as if he's the defensive coordinator, which he probably should be, and he now probably is acting as. He's really he's being more hands-on, and that's what made him great. So I don't know who's making the adjustments, but he's definitely pushing the buttons the right way now.
And he looks more comfortable on the sideline as a head coach. He's not quite the crazy psycho that he was, as a DC with Clemson, when needing a get back coach quite yet, but he definitely doesn't look as timid as he did earlier on in the season, where he was just writing in his little notebook every time a mistake was made. He looks like he's enjoying it, maybe more comfortable with the role he's in now. I don't know if we're ever going to see the crazy screaming Brent Venables again, but I hope we do, as he gets more comfortable, maybe later on in the year, a bowl game, if we make it to that point. But yeah, it's good to see that he's more involved. The DBs, I think, did a fantastic job this weekend. Again, it's not like I think they played a perfect game, but they made Xavier Hutchinson earn every single catch he got. He has 10 catches for a little under 80 yards, I believe. It's like 73.
72.
Let me double check. 72. Yeah, so they made him earn every single one of those catches and yards. The interception from Woody, I don't know how that wasn't overturned, but at the end of the day, it's on the stat sheet, so good for him. But those refs were god awful. The commentators were god awful. The play on the field was pretty good though, so glad we were back to some decent football.
Yeah, those commentators were tough to listen to, and obviously, I know OU is not getting the primetime slots right now, and because their games aren't, implications of college football playoffs and things like that. It was brutal. Another thing I want to mention, talking about the special teams, not only did Michael Turk have a perfect, passer rating and everything, but his punts, he played extremely well, and he was backed up in the end zone with a short, he was backed up in the very back, and he had a short run, and he kicked it like 61 yards, and the commentator goes, "Oh, it's just a short punt." I'm thinking to myself, are you kidding me? He kicked it past midfield, and they had to call a fair catch, and he didn't even have his full, what is it, 15 yards or whatever it is to punt, and he made it that far, and the commentator's like, "It's a short punt." I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, but if you're able to be backed up in your end zone and you're kicking on the other side of the 50, that's a win to me. And he played fantastic. And the special teams, like you said earlier, are tremendously better than what they have been, especially with the brand new kicker. Turk's been great. Schmidt's really starting to come together. The special teams look really strong. You win and lose games in that scenario. What happens if that punt gets blocked? A couple times it got blocked. I mean, this game could be totally different then.
Yeah, that's why I don't think this was an amazing game by Oklahoma. I think we just were playing against the right offense that made us look really good, because they put us in really bad field situations quite a bit, and they had some good field positioning. You're right. Turk did have some really, really good punts getting into the other side of the 50, downing them at, at the 2 or 3 yard line on a punt. Another one where he was back up in the end zone and it rolled to the 30. Like, the dude is really good as a punter, but we got lucky that they did not take advantage of those really good field positions, because there could have been a lot more points on that board, and definitely helped. The turnovers helped a lot, but I just feel like if we play a good offense, giving them that kind of field position, it's going to be tough to win. I also think that most teams we play against will not have this good of a defense. Whatever Campbell is doing up there, I don't get the hate for him. I know that he's kind of a crazy psychopath on the sideline, and sometimes it can be a little much, but he's doing really well at Iowa State, and I would be surprised if he's still there after this season. I know he's calling this the Iowa State rebuild 3.0 or whatever, but I really don't see him following through with this 3.0 rebuild because someone's going to fork up a ton of money to get him to a bigger program, maybe Nebraska, maybe Auburn. It seems like it's inevitable that they fire their head coach. I I'm just impressed that he's, even with a down year in regards to the talent he has and the experience he has on that field, he's able to put out one of the best defenses in the country. His offense sucks, but I'm sure they'll fix that as there's more experience and with recruiting at Iowa State. And it is tough to recruit there. I mean, Iowa seems to be the powerhouse program in that state, even no matter how good Iowa State has been over the last few years. I was going to just out recruit them. So it's not easy to get players to go to Ames.
I agree. So overall, it's nice that OU was able to get a win, go 5-3, or improve to 5-3. Things are going in the right direction, building some momentum. Now OU plays Baylor. I got to get your thoughts. I know this isn't talking about this game, this Iowa State game, but the Baylor game, OU Baylor's on at 2:00 on ESPN Plus. I never would have thought that I would have been watching an OU game on ESPN Plus, but I guess it just goes to show what happens whenever you're not winning, most of your games. Do you have any thoughts on OU being on ESPN Plus? I'm not the biggest fan of it.
I don't mind it because it'll be easier for us to rewatch it. That's the biggest thing I like about it. I'm hoping that we get better commentators than we have had the last 2 weeks. I really don't. I guess I haven't really considered it being weird not being on national television. But again, I don't. Maybe it's because I already have ESPN Plus. It's not like an extra subscription I have to go get for this game. I don't mind it. I just hope the commentators aren't as clueless and boring as we have had the last 2 games.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I'm kind of throwing some random things at you, but it looks like that the Big 12 has just finalized or they're nearing finalizing a new 6-year, $2.28 billion TV extension with Fox and ESPN. It seems like the Big 12 is here to stay, and not a shock at all. It makes me wonder, with that kind of deal that they're working on, does that put the Pac-12? I mean, if I'm a Pac-12 school and they still don't have a new TV deal out on the West Coast, I would be interested in trying to join the Big 12 if I were a Pac-12 school. I mean, it is, the Pac-12 is in a really bad spot. And especially with the Big 12 already basically negotiating another extension before, this is just the early negotiation periods. I mean, they didn't even have to do this yet, and they're about to.
Yeah, the Pac-12 is in big trouble. They really got to figure something out. Losing USC and UCLA was clearly I think that it was their nail in the coffin. And then you see Oregon and Washington State looking for ways to get to the Big Ten, or just having conversations about leaving the Pac-12. We're going to go to a 4-conference format at some point, which will make it easier for the playoffs, even once they expand, because we'll probably just see 3 teams from each conference at that point, the 3 best teams, or who knows how that'll be formatted. But yeah, it seems like the Pac-12 won't be a relevant, not that they have been, but they will no longer be a Power 5 conference if they do somehow manage to survive this realignments that's going on.
Yeah. So, I mean, good for the Big 12. I mean, it's not really a shock once they added 4 new schools as quick as they did. So they're getting a bump in some TV revenue, or some revenue, which is good for them. And the Big 12 is going to be around for a while, which I think it needs to be. I'm glad we're not going to the 2 super conferences. I like at least four different power conferences.
And I think this year has really helped them in their negotiation, because The SEC is really good. I think that's undoubtedly the best conference this year, not just because they have probably 3 of the top 6 teams in the country, probably the 3 best teams in the country, but they have a lot of really good parity. You see Ole Miss playing really good right now. Tennessee's back. It seems like they might be the best team in the country or the second best team in the country. That'll be decided this coming weekend when they play Georgia in Athens.
LSU.
LSU's playing really well. Like a lot of teams are doing really well in the SEC. I think the Big Ten is not as good as people want it to be or have just declared they are, because really it's just 2 teams and then the rest of them suck. The Big 12 is helping themselves out a lot this year because every team can beat everyone. Like there's maybe outside a couple of teams, but it's a pretty wide open conference, and it's going to be a lot of really good football. It has been a lot of really good football this year. We've kind of taken the shit into things on some situations, but I mean, you have it seems like it might be K-State and TCU competing for the Big 12 championship. Like that, I don't think I probably could have imagined that one at the beginning of the year at all. Maybe K-State
No.
competing for the championship, but not TCU.
No.
I think we both agree they'd be kind of a middle of the pack Big 12 team this year. They are a wagon. I still think they got lucky in a lot of situations, but they're able to win. That's all that matters at the end of the year.
At the end of the day, as long as you win, that's all that matters. Yeah, no, the Big 12 is doing well. Then moving on to some other news that isn't the most exciting news. OU ended up losing a commit, their second decommit in total of this 2023 class, and Caleb Spencer. Spencer is a 2023 3-star safety from Colonial Heights, Virginia. He committed to the Sooners back in May, and then he took a trip down to Miami, I believe, and then ended up flipping his commitment to Miami. It's not the end of the world. Yeah, does it suck to lose a kid like him? Of course, he's like 6'3". I mean, he's huge. And we could, it's a position where OU is recruiting him as a linebacker or safety, kind of one of the flex spots like the cheetah spot. It does hurt to lose the guy like this, but it's not the end of the world. I'm not sure what influenced his decision. You would think that maybe NIL came into this decision a little bit with Miami being there and probably making some pretty lucrative NIL deals. Or maybe he just felt like it was a better fit for him. I'm not sure. Maybe staying on the East Coast is a little bit easier for his parents to come see him down in Miami, easier trips down there. There's probably a multitude of factors, or maybe the Sooners recruiting, so many safeties still kind of rub them the wrong way. I don't know. So it does suck to lose. What do you think?
Yeah, I was excited to get him on campus. I think that 3-star rating isn't right with him, and I talked about it in a video with Brody, but he was one of the recruits that I was really excited about because he is so, I guess he doesn't get the hype or the attention that a lot of our other recruits get and a lot of recruits in the country get. But I remember early on in his high school season, I think it was an On3 reporter was talking about how he had just gone to one of his games and he was having a fantastic game stat wise, but towards the end of the game, he goes up, runs against the sideline and tells all the reporters to get their cameras ready because he's about to block this kick and manages to do it. And I said it in the last video. I'm going to say it again. I think most people that talk shit and are that cocky about things usually are the worst player on the field. But when you can find that gem that is cocky, has the swagger, talks shit, and is able to back it up, you found someone that is going to likely be a really good player at the next level. Hopefully he does well at Miami. I really don't care to speculate if it was NIL. I like the idea that, and I think it's probably just as likely that distance probably had something to do with it, recruiting, how Oklahoma's recruiting now, given that he was kind of the cheetah position, a hybrid linebacker safety. We're going after Tassili Akana. I think when he committed, Oklahoma wasn't too sure if Norman was going to be a place that Tassili Akana had considered. But now that we seem to be leading for his commitment, maybe that just kind of made it so that is just time for both Oklahoma and Caleb to part ways, and he found a good opportunity with Miami. Who knows what that program is going to be in the next 2 to 3 years under Cristobal. I know they're having a really tough year this year, but that is a much bigger rebuild than probably anyone really knew before Cristobal got hired.
Yeah, he's having to tear it down to the studs. That offense isn't looking good, but Caleb Spencer's not on the offensive side, so he didn't probably care too much about that.
And I mean, last thought there on recruiting. Being bad sometimes can help. I think Miami is this year's proof of that. They absolutely suck and have managed to pull a top 10 class, more than likely going to be a top 10 class when it's all said and done for the 23 cycle.
Yeah, I mean, they have 2 top 10 players, Cormani McLean and Francis Moyaga. I never can say his name, but I mean, they're pulling a lot of good talent. So they've got something building, and obviously Cristobal, it does have that. His name carries a lot of weight with what he did at Oregon. So it's one of those deals. He's not like Jimbo Fisher. He hasn't been there for 5 or 6 years. This is year one.
That guy still sucks.
He does. So we can move on to the betting picks, unless you have something to add, talk about college football or anything.
No, we'll get to it because I do want to shit on Jimbo Fisher for a second, but we'll get to it later.
Yep. We'll do our bets. OU Iowa State. Going in the week, I know I was 27-20, and you were 24-23-1, right?
Yep.
Okay. Going into this week, we both picked OU -1. Both obviously won that one. All right. Next one, I had Arkansas Auburn. I had Arkansas -3.5. Arkansas ran away with it. Not a surprise. I just think that Auburn's not that great of a team.
I had Penn State and Ohio State. I thought Ohio State was going to be able to cover 14.5. Penn State hoed me at the end of the game and scored a touchdown to make it a 13-point game. So I lost that on a backdoor cover.
You hate to see it.
Yeah.
Speaking of Miami, I had Miami and Virginia. I had Miami -2 points. They went to quadruple overtime, and Miami ended up winning by 2. So I have a push there.
My next, I lost. My only win was Oklahoma, so I'm just going to be rattling off losses here. It's Fade Jose season. Next one was TCU. Those dickheads also covered at the end. I think I had them at -7, or no, I had West Virginia +7.5. And then with TCU scoring that last second touchdown, made it a 10-point game, so I lost.
Yep. I had Oregon, California. I had Oregon -17. It was close in the beginning. Oregon pulled away, and I think ended up winning by 18 points. So barely on the right side of things there.
Iowa was able to score points this weekend somehow. I will probably be fading Northwestern for the rest of the year and continue to bet the Iowa under because I still think they stink.
Yeah. And my last one, I looked like an idiot. OSU, K-State. I took OSU +1.5. Obviously, they lost 48-0. I don't really know what that was from Oklahoma State. I don't think Oklahoma State's that bad, and I don't think Kansas State is that good. Like 48-0 kind of good. I just don't know what happened to OSU. That was bizarre. Not that I'm upset over. I mean, it is what it is, but it was just bizarre. That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah. So my last bet was Kentucky being able to cover, I think it was 10.5. I had the line at. Tennessee proves that they are one of the best teams in the country, and again could be proving that they are the best team in the country this weekend when they go to Athens. So we'll see. But yeah, I took a loss there. And going back to the Oklahoma State thing, we talked about it in text right after their game. How long will they put up with Gundy falling short year in and year out? Last year, I think, was his best year as their head coach in his entire coaching tenure there. And he's been there a long time. I know he's won a Big 12 title before, or when the title game wasn't in existence there for those few years. But like, he keeps falling short. At some point, they have to fire the dude. They can't just be okay with mediocrity for, I mean, he's still relatively young. He could coach for another 10, 15 years if he really wanted to. Are they really going to let him just continue to be average to just almost good for the next 10 to 15 years?
Like I said, it might be that he might be the best that they can do. I don't know.
I just feel like they have enough money.
Yeah.
They got to be able to find someone like a Lance Leopold, I think is how you pronounce his name, that can get something going. I know Kansas isn't doing better, or better than Oklahoma State right now, but he's been able to take them from the laughing stock of college football to a decent team. Not going to be world beaters by any means, but like, you don't expect to just go play Kansas and be an automatic W. Like, they can put up a game against any team.
No, that's fair. That's fair. I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to watch though, to see what I don't think anything's gonna happen though.
If
I think he
Oklahoma,
stays.
I think if we are able to beat them this year at Bedlam, they've really got to consider it, because this is the most down that Oklahoma's been, I think, in his coaching tenure. If you can't beat this Oklahoma team, you've got zero chance of doing it in the next 2 to 3 years before we leave for the SEC.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see. I don't know. OU's might get hot. Beat Baylor this weekend. That's going to be a 3-game win streak, getting hot. So at the end of the week, I went 3-1-1. I've improved to 30, 21-1 on the year. Jose?
I would 1-4. As I said, I took a terrible weekend. That's 2 terrible weekends in a row. So again, it's Fade Jose season. My record is 25, 27-1. So just got on the bad side of the 50% mark. We'll be back.
All right. You'll bounce back. Next week is the best week that you're going to have. Go 6-0, 8-0.
I'll have 12 bets next weekend just to try to make up for all the losses.
You're going to love the board.
Oh, yeah. Every single game.
Every single game, going to love it. So, all right. Well, I think that's all I've got. Do you have anything to add or final thoughts?
Just end the video challenge. We're going to go with the Man I Love Football moment of the weekend. In short, the MILF moment. I'm going to go with Lane Kiffin clowning Jimbo Fisher all week and ending it with his joke at the end during his post game hit there, where he said that maybe Jimbo has a Joker costume for him in the back. Lane Kiffin, I'm not a huge fan of his, like, as a football coach. I think he's pretty average. But that dude is hilarious. He trolls everyone, and probably no one more than Jimbo Fisher. I don't know what beef he has with Jimbo, but it started with making that comment early in the week, like it's a common thing to be outbid by A&M when they asked him about their DC, since he's now A&M's DC. I'm pretty sure he had a comment about them early in the summer when everyone was talking about how A&M paid for their 2022 recruiting class. I hope it continues. I hope we hear Lane Kiffin shit on Jimbo Fisher for the rest of our lives.
And everyone else too. Get after Jimbo Fisher. I think it's hilarious. They've fallen to 3-5, which is awesome. My moment would be I really liked the UCF Cincinnati game. The ending of that game was really exciting. UCF basically kind of won in a walk-off fashion with like 40-something seconds left. They scored a touchdown to go up by 4. That game was pretty fun to watch, and it was entertaining. And Cincinnati dropped their first game to an unranked opponent in like 38 games or something crazy. They had some crazy win streak against unranked teams, and they ended up finally losing one. Future Big 12 members playing against each other. So that was a pretty good weekend. So made it this far. We appreciate it. Hit the like video, subscribe to the channel, turn the notification bell on. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Apple, and Spotify. Everything's linked in the description below. And we will catch you guys next or sometime later this week.